Would it make you a jerk for sending your ex's mom the harassing text the ex sent you? A Redditor shares a story of exactly that, but first, am I the jerk for not telling my sister-in-law that her adult daughter was with me? My 28-year-old niece, on my husband's side, was away at college and struggling one day, called me sad, crying, and desperate. Her mom and stepdad were in Europe traveling. She was lonely and depressed. I told her she was welcome to come visit for the weekend, and she was so happy to do so. I bought her a plane ticket and we picked her up from the airport. She was under pressure from her parents and school, and we just lent her a pressure-free environment, drank wine, and listened. We assessed that she was okay and there was no reason for concern. She didn't want to tell her mom that she was at our house and asked us not to either. We agreed and said it's her story to tell, but we also won't lie if asked. She's also 28, going to college out of state, as are my own kids, and I go weeks at a time without hearing from them. Her mom didn't hear from her in a day or two, so she went on to call all of her friends to find out where she was. Got wind that she was at our house and went off on us. Scathing barrage of text messages, berating voice messages, made us to be villains. I didn't want to deal with it, so I ended up ignoring her. Was I wrong for not calling her mom and secretly telling her mom she was at my house? Am I the jerk? Now, this is just my assumption, but I would assume most people would hear this story and think, OP's definitely not the jerk. First of all, this is basically a relative who is 28 years old. If they want to be at your house and also wanted you to keep it under wraps that they were there, unless this is like some kind of weird illegal or like affair thing, how could you possibly be the jerk for being there for them in a time of need and not blabbing about where they were if they didn't want to have that shared? Like, sorry that OP, your sister-in-law, isn't a human life 360. Dinah Felice commented, "Sister-in-law, your daughter is an adult. I have no obligation to randomly reach out to her mother just because she's come for a visit, any more than I have an obligation to reach out to your mother anytime I've seen you in person. On top of that, it's extremely strange and disconcerting that you would send me a barrage of nasty messages just because you think I owed you a phone call. That's not an appropriate reaction when having a minor disagreement with someone. That suggests to me that you're having some difficulties with emotional regulation and might benefit from speaking to a therapist. Not the jerk. Just because sister-in-law is having a reaction, that doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Her actions were completely jerkish, even if you had failed to call her when you should have. But unless there's a known safety issue, it is utterly ridiculous to think you constantly need to update another adult's parents just because the adult child is having a bad week or decided to take a quick trip out of town. And ultimately, your sister-in-law is playing with fire. This kind of infantilizing treatment is likely to push your niece further away." Holdfast02 commented, "This is an excellent reply, yes. Sister-in-law seems to have a very strange relationship with her daughter, and I wonder if that's the reason a 28-year-old calls her aunt crying because she's home alone. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below?" That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for making my boyfriend's mom cry because of a petty rule? So me, 21-year-old female, and my boyfriend, 24-year-old male, have been together for almost 2 years and live together. His mother is very involved in his life. Some might say overbearing, but I try to be respectful. She's nice but has this way of pushing boundaries while acting like she means well. So the issue, I have a no shoes in the house rule. My boyfriend's cool with it, all of my friends do it no problem, but his mom refuses. She claims it's rude to ask guests to take their shoes off and that it would make her feel disrespected. I've tried explaining that it's just a cleanliness thing, but she won't budge. Last weekend she came over and, surprise surprise, walked in with her shoes on. I very politely, I swear, said, "Oh, can you take them off please?" She kind of huffs and is like, "You're really gonna make me do this?" And I just stood there waiting. She sighs dramatically, takes them off, and spends the whole visit sulking. Then later I get a text from my boyfriend's dad saying that I made her cry and she feels like I'm trying to assert dominance over her and her son's home. Our home, actually. My boyfriend is on my side, but now his parents are acting like I've disrespected the Queen of England. Am I the jerk for standing my ground on a very normal rule? If this is a very clear, agreed-upon thing, this united front between OP and their partner as far as take your shoes off when you come into the house, it's a cleanliness thing, then OP has to not be the jerk, right? I mean, genuinely, judgment-free, I'd love to hear from people who think that OP could be the jerk or is slightly in the wrong. I mean, I guess you could argue like maybe somebody has just like a general discomfort that like sucks alone in a stranger's house where you don't know like how the germs could be or whatever. Like maybe I could buy like a phobia type thing. Or if you start like introducing some other variables that do change things quite a bit, which would be like if their floors were just disgusting, like they never cleaned them up, you'd probably not want to walk around even in just socks. Impressive Big 7730 commented, "Not the jerk. If your boyfriend is aligned, how's he handling the situation? I'd expect him to call them up and shut it down. The dad shouldn't be attacking you, and your boyfriend should be standing up for you. It sounds like he agrees, but what's he doing to solve the issue?" OP responded commenting, "He's pretty nonchalant about it, understands that she's overbearing and rude, but annoyingly doesn't share my frustration with her attitude." Not Good Happy Quinn replied to that commenting, "Then you need to make it his problem as well. Tell him how upset you are, how disrespected you feel that she can't follow this one simple rule, and that actually, given the dad's words, it seems like her refusing is her attempt to assert dominance of you in your own home. Even down to them saying it's her son's home. Explain to him that you've put up with enough at this point, and either he steps in and shuts it down, or she's not welcome in the house, or you'll start handling it, and it won't be by being nice. Nip this in the bud unless you want it to get worse, basically. You said you try and be respectful? Stop that. She doesn't deserve the level of respect you're giving her. Respect is earned and mutual." This next story is, "Am I the jerk for refusing to lend my car to my younger sister? My younger sister recently got her driver's license and has been asking to borrow my car frequently. I let them use it a couple of times, but each time she brings it back, there's barely any fuel in it. Fuel is getting really expensive for me, and once, even with a small scratch. I tried talking to her about it, but she didn't really take it seriously. Last weekend, she asked to borrow it again for a road trip with her friends. I refused, explaining that I needed the car and that I wasn't comfortable lending it to her for such a long trip, and in case anything happened to it, especially given her track record. She got really upset and accused me of not trusting her and being overly protective of my car. She hasn't talked to me since, and my parents are saying that I should be more supportive. I feel like she should get a job and save up for a car just like I did, but do you think I'm being too strict? Would you guys say that it's kind of like the common expectation that if I'm going to allow you to use my car, you don't even necessarily have to refill the car, but at least like kick back the money for gas? I know not everything has to be like a what's in it for me type situation, but OP is getting nothing out of this. Like, the one thing they might get, which is like the satisfaction of knowing they're helping their younger sister out, is extremely boxed out by the reality of how badly they're treating OP stuff. Dryad Dwinneth commented, "Not the jerk. They're supportive, and then there's this. This is too much. She doesn't respect your property, she doesn't respect your finances, and she legitimately can't be trusted with a car. Or at least, with your car. Guessing she might be more careful with her own. Anyways, you talked to her about it, she blew you off, so now there's no more car for her. I wouldn't do it regardless though. A road trip? Absolutely not." Our next story is, "Am I the jerk for kicking my sister's boyfriend out because he wasn't contributing? I lived with my sister for years, and at some point she invited her boyfriend to move in with us because he didn't have enough money for a place of his own. She saw it as normal since we had the resources, but I wasn't comfortable with the situation. Over time, problems started arising, and I felt like this arrangement wasn't working. He wasn't contributing financially, and I felt it wasn't fair for me to keep supporting him indirectly. So after a lot of arguments, I made the decision to ask him to leave. However, my sister kept insisting on bringing him back. Even after he moved out and found a job, he still didn't rent a place of his own. Instead, they kept bouncing between different places until she got tired and tried to convince me to let him move back in again. Now they're planning to get married in 3 months, but he still hasn't secured his own place. I can't help but feel like he's waiting for her to rent a home so they can split the cost, or that he expects her to support him the way she did before. I made my decision a year ago because I wanted to set a boundary and push him to be more independent. But seeing how things have played out, I'm questioning the decision I made. Am I the jerk for kicking him out? I almost don't understand what OP's actually kind of questioning. Like, are they grappling with the concept of because OP kicked the boyfriend out that made things harder for the sister, and now the sister who's continuing to stay with this guy may end up in a difficult situation because of it? Does that somehow circle back around to OP being the jerk for kicking him out in the first place? I think certainly not. Clearly things weren't working out. He was kind of being a freeloader. And it's not really a surprise to me that after OP kicked them out, they just continue to cause problems. Just not OP's problems because they absolved themselves of that. Ketracast commented, "Not the jerk. As for whether or not he just wants to mooch off your sister forever, well, if she's willing, then that's on her. If you guys live together again, then your sister should take it upon herself to put in a bit more to cover both their expenses, as that's the responsibility she is willingly assuming. If she's paying for both their expenses, there shouldn't be an issue. That's of course just on the financial side. It's good that you worry about your sister being taken advantage of, but ultimately, it's up to her whether she wants to be his sugar mama forever." Edit to add, if her boyfriend is douchey and your direct relationship with him isn't good, then she also shouldn't be bringing him in even if she is paying for his expenses. You should feel comfortable and safe in your own home. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my married sister that karma is going to get her for sleeping with other married men? My sister is in a sexless marriage. Husband has ED, is morbidly obese, and just cannot satisfy her needs. He's a nice guy and has PTSD due to fighting in a war and is at times very depressed. He also cannot hold a job, and she always works at least 2 jobs to support them. He does get a disability but is allowed to work because it's not enough to even support himself. Sister decided to start dating married men on a site that matches up married people who just want to hook up. She is actively dating 5 guys but thinks she's in love with several. A couple have offered to leave their spouses for her. One says he has a wife who's dying and intimates that they'll be together when wife passes. I've told sister that these guys are cheaters and liars and she probably shouldn't believe a word they say. In the meantime, she openly texts them and sends nudes to these guys. Often her husband takes the pics, being told that she's making a sexy photo album for him. He seems oblivious as he's pretty self-absorbed and focuses on his problems, hobbies, etc. He's a bit of a buffoon, but doesn't deserve the disrespect. Several months ago, I told sister that I don't want to talk about her sexual conquests. I don't want to be used as an alibi for her cheating. I think that bad karma is coming her way if she continues down this path. Also, I consider her husband a brother and trusted friend. I don't think he's a good husband, but he's a good person, and she should just ask for an open marriage or be honest with him about what's going on or divorce him. She says she doesn't tell him due to his fragile mental health, but I think she's hedging her bets. This has been a pattern with her throughout life. She cheats until she gets a new guaranteed relationship and then leaves the old one. Also, she has 0 problems sleeping with married men. Husband doesn't cook or clean and expects her to provide dinner and other meals for him, or he just won't eat. He's spoiled, and she set the tone of that relationship early on. That's been their dynamic since the beginning. I do understand her frustration, but I cannot support the cheating and what she's doing to the other wives. If one is dying, I think it's evil to be hooking up with her husband. Sister says that I need to be a non-judgmental friend to her and support her while she figures out her life. I told her that it's too triggering for me to watch her texting other men, and no matter the situation, she continues to feed me play-by-plays of her escapades. She says that I'm just jealous of all the attention she gets. I'm not jealous, I'm disgusted and feel guilty and burdened. I won't tell her husband for fear of what he might do to himself. He has a history of threatening stuff. I know that in these situations, the truth always comes out. I've just taken a step back from our relationship and I don't call or text her anymore. We've always been so close, but I just can't be a part of this. I think this is really a situation that comes down to you and your personal morals as a person. And honestly, I think it's going to be such a mixed bag that the reactions to a post like this are going to be all over the place. There's going to be people out there who staunchly believe that OP should immediately tell the husband. And then there's going to also be people that say it's not really OP's problem. Personally, myself, I would feel kind of similar to OP, especially in the sense that she's talking about all these escapades. I would hate feeling like I'm kind of privy to this thing and being dragged along and complicit in it just because she keeps talking about it and doing it, like texting those people right in front of OP. I mean, I don't see how I could not feel horrendous for the husband in that situation, bad husband or not. Honest Meg 38 commented, "Not the jerk. I wouldn't get involved. Your loyalty is to your sister and she's in the wrong. Although having to have 2 jobs, take care of a disabled person, and do stay-at-home wife responsibilities is a lot. I wouldn't blame her if she left. She's not even getting emotional or physical support. What exactly does he bring to the relationship? You're either a provider or support person or some combo of both. He's none of those things." OP responded commenting, "True, she says she loves him and he is funny and the kind of guy who will do anything to help someone. He just doesn't do much around the house and doesn't put much effort into their relationship. He is a good friend, but not a good husband. I wouldn't want to be married to him." Our next story is, am I the jerk for hurting my friend's feelings by criticizing her shoplifting? I, 27-year-old male, have a friend, 23-year-old female, who lives in California. She frequently shoplifts from major retailers, justifying that she can get away with it both because of the state's questionable theft laws and for the fact that she's less likely to be profiled on account of being a white woman. Most of our arguments have been made for several hour-long back and forths, often to no avail. Recently, my friend met another woman who she intended to be in a relationship with. This woman checked off a lot of boxes, and I could tell my friend was particularly excited. However, when my friend's crush learned that she was a shoplifter, she broke off contact because she didn't want to be exposed to a bad influence. My friend returned to me complaining about this falling out and how upset she was over it. After I asked her to explain the reason, and she did, I told her that most people don't support stealing, especially because she's not exactly stealing to survive. She mostly pilfers books, makeup, and other recreational products that she doesn't want to pay for with her full-time job. I then asked friend if there might be something to learn from this, to which she replied, "Keep things to myself, lie more." When I told her that might not have been the right message, she groused that she doesn't know why she tells me things. Considering that friend is Christian and constantly argues against sinful behavior such as premarital hookup, it's extremely frustrating to me that she can't seem to grasp why stealing is wrong. Am I wrong to have brought it up when she complained about her failed crush, and should I have been more supportive? Or is she simply refusing to learn a basic lesson about morality and social contracts? OP is 1,000,000% not the jerk. It's going to catch up to her some way, somehow. I know in another video on the channel, a story recently referenced it where Target actually had this intentional program where they would track somebody who was a regular shoplifter, waited until they shoplifted over $3,000 worth of merchandise, and then took action just so they could pull the full felony charge on them. Shoplifting something might be an edgy, rebellious thing when you're in your early teens or something, but how many people out there who are looking to get into a relationship who find out that that potential partner is a serial shoplifter is actually going to stick around or be into that? I mean, I don't know, maybe they just need to Tinder around until they find the right person who also likes shoplifting to steal their heart. Cat the Conqueror commented, "Not the jerk." Her response to you asking what she learned is troubling. If she's adult enough to run around stealing, she's adult enough to be called out on it. For the record, a lot of places wait until a shoplifter has stolen a significant amount of things, so there will be bigger charges. Our next story is, am I the jerk for yelling at my sister-in-law for embarrassing my wife? I, 28-year-old male, yelled at my sister-in-law, 31-year-old female, for embarrassing my wife, 27-year-old female. My wife is 6 months postpartum and was helping her sister get ready for a family get-together. My wife was moving things around and picked up a bag of dog food and peed herself because of it. My sister-in-law, who doesn't have kids by the way, found it hilarious and decided to tell everybody about it. My wife was embarrassed about it, and I confronted my sister-in-law, saying she had no idea what my wife had been through and that if she knew, she wouldn't be making fun of her. By the way, this isn't the first time she's tried to embarrass my wife. Sometimes I feel like Judge Judy commenting on these things, giving a verdict. OP's not the jerk. Can I sentence the sister-in-law to X amount of hours of having to watch Miracle of Life documentaries? I don't really know if there's a full extra situation, extra layers especially as to why this would be so brutal, but even just on the baseline of she's postpartum, obviously there's complications involved with that, and it's just so dumb and insensitive to make comments like that. How could you possibly argue against OP? Our next story is, am I the jerk for reminding my mother that I'm not my niece's parent? I, 19-year-old male, was kicking a ball around my kitchen and my mother said, "It would be nice if you did that with your niece," even though I was literally playing soccer with her in the house last week. She just said it as if I never play with my niece, which isn't true. I told her I do play with her. I was playing with her last week and she said something like, yeah, every once in a while. It would be nice if you did it a bit more. And then she had the audacity to say, remember who kicked a ball around with you when you were younger? As if I'm my niece's parent or something. I said to her, yeah, but I'm not her parent. I don't have to play with her. And she went on a whole rant about how my niece loves spending time with me, basically just a guilt trip. My niece, too, lives in the same house as me, so I'm around her enough without having to play with her for hours a day. My mother is just acting like I never spend any time with her, and the fact that she brought up spending more time with her to me and not the actual parent of the child is crazy to me. I'd like to know if you guys agree. I kind of feel like I'm gleaming a sense of passing the buck on here, like a guilt trip or even basically like a projection. Like I don't really want to do this or I feel like I can't do it enough, so I'm going to try to project on OP and make them feel bad about not doing it for me. Ruri Berrio commented, not the jerk. Your mom's proper laying it on thick with the guilt trip. You already spend time with your niece, and just because you live in the same house doesn't mean you've got to be her personal entertainer 24/7. Sounds like your mom's just reminiscing about when you were a kid, but that's on her, not you. Your niece has parents for a reason. You're her uncle, not her dad. This next story is, am I the jerk for not explicitly stating my punch is non-alcoholic? I, 25-year-old female, recently attended a potluck-style work party and brought punch, which has since caused a problem between myself and another coworker, 42-year-old female, who we'll call Sandy. Last week, my boss hosted a party at his house to celebrate the end of the busy season and a job well done. All of my coworkers and their spouses were invited, and we decided it would work well to do a potluck to offset the cost of feeding everyone. About 35 people, since not everyone who came brought a spouse or significant other. I volunteered to make a punch that I've brought to previous work events that everyone said they enjoyed, as well as some fruit to go with it. This was a casual party with alcohol present, but since I have some coworkers who don't drink, I didn't add any alcohol to this punch, and figured that if people really wanted some, they would just add it themselves. Fast forward a couple of hours, and Sandy is getting even louder and more dramatic than normal and is stumbling around the party. I didn't think much of it and figured she brought her own drinks or was adding some of the host's alcohol that was put out into something else. She suddenly fell off the chair she was sitting on and made a big show of saying that it's because she was so drunk. She then asked me, in front of the rest of our coworkers, what it was that I put in the punch. I was confused and told her what was in it, just a mix of ginger ale, 7-Up, orange juice, and a can of juice concentrate, and she wanted to know what alcohol I put in it, because she's been drinking it all night and she is really feeling it. I told her that I didn't put any alcohol in it, and asked if maybe someone else had spiked the punch bowl. Nobody said they added anything, and one of my coworkers who doesn't drink even said that they'd also been drinking the punch all evening and was still completely sober. I would also like to clarify that I understand how context can matter. Like, if everyone else was really drunk, then they can make even a sober person feel like they're loaded. But that was definitely not the vibe. Sandy was the only person acting drunk. She then got really quiet and went by herself to the bathroom. The rest of my coworkers and I exchanged some awkward glances and tried to laugh it off. She left shortly after, and I received an angry text from her about how I shouldn't have embarrassed her like that, and that now she looks like an idiot in front of our bosses and the rest of our coworkers. She's been hostile to me at work ever since, and is basically refusing to talk to me. I didn't think I did anything wrong, and most of my coworkers agree with me, but some say that I should have just let her go on thinking that the punch was alcoholic to save her the embarrassment. And I'm wondering now if I'm in the wrong. Am I the jerk? Based upon everything that's been explained here, OP's not the jerk. They kind of embarrass themselves. And as much as they want to pass the blame onto OP and say, oh, it's all your fault, you should have just gone along with it and said, oh, I put so much strong alcohol into it. Like, nobody in OP's position would want that liability of saying after the fact, oh yeah, it does have alcohol in it. If anything, maybe just sorry that it ruined maybe a fun night for her, if, you know, she enjoyed being sober drunk. Alana Advocate commented, I'm saying not the jerk based on the info presented, but I do have some questions. Info, have you ever spiked the punch yourself? Has it ever been spiked by someone else? How long has Sandy worked there? Has she ever been to a work event where the punch was spiked? Has she ever said or done anything that led to you two butting heads or you concluding that she doesn't like you or otherwise views you as competition? Have you? Full disclosure, I'm asking because it's possible she has it out for you. Not that I necessarily think you've done something to warrant it, and since she's making things difficult on the clock, the safest way to resolve it is to escalate to your boss or HR, and they're likely to ask you questions along the same lines. Even if you never spiked the punch before and you two don't have a history, I'm almost entirely sure Sandy was either trying to embarrass you by implying that you got her roaring drunk at a work event, or she's got that super rare auto-brewer's disease where her stomach produces alcohol. Since the latter is massively unlikely given how she was sober enough to leave, and she was acting drunk before she fell off her chair, I think it's safe to say we have our winner. She brought it on herself, and you shouldn't feel bad for being honest when someone's accusing you of corporate sabotage? Reckless endangerment? However a lawyer might phrase it. Either way, do not wait to speak to HR or your boss about the issue, and write everything you remember about her behavior since the party down, including dates and times. Our next story is, am I the jerk for sending a screenshot of my ex harassing me to his mom? Hello Reddit, I never know how to start posts, so I'll just get into the story. About 2 years ago, I, 17-year-old female, 16 at the time, dated this guy, 17-year-old male at the time. We'll call him Mark. He checked all the boxes, an absolute angel. We texted and flirted in person for almost a year, but only dated a month before he broke up with me. He broke up with me for being too cringe and no fun. I personally think it was because I wouldn't put out for him, but I digress. I've always been the type of girlfriend to hang out with a family. Your mom likes crocheting? Me too, let's make matching hats. Your dad likes baseball? We can watch it while your son does his chores. Your little sister's getting into rowdy music? Here's my suggestions. I say all this to say that by the time we started dating, I was already pretty close to his family. When we broke up, his mom reached out and told me that she was sorry for our relationship and that I was an amazing kid, which made the hard time a lot better. This brings us to yesterday. I'm a pretty odd person and keep all my contacts. I can't tell you the last time I blocked or deleted someone's number. I got a text from Mark saying this. Hey, I'm looking at all my blocked contacts and it would help if you'd tell me who you are. I'm Mark, by the way. I stare at the message for a while, my brain completely fried. I show it to my current boyfriend, and he just laughs and says, "Don't respond, you'll get the hint." Not wanting to deal with that in the slightest, I just mute the conversation and go back to my day. Later, I'm at my boyfriend's house, and after some joking, he takes my phone and types back to the conversation. "Block the number again, bud." At this point, we're laughing about it until Mark starts blowing up my phone. "Who is it though?" Crying emoji face. "At least tell me who this is." "Hello? Question marks? What the freak, who is this? Question mark? I take my phone again and type, "Oh my god, it's my name, stop blowing up the phone." He says after that, "I ain't blowing up your phone, broski, freak off. You're freaking ugly anyway, bench, KYS. I roll my eyes at that because of how his tone changed. At first I thought to let it go, but then I remembered how this guy consistently took jabs at me with my friends and tried to stalk me for months. Instead of being mature, which honestly I don't think he deserves my maturity, I sent a screenshot of the conversation to his mom, who I also still had saved. I sent the photo along with a, "This is what happens with your son behind your back." His mom is ultra religious. After this, I blocked both of their contacts. I know it was immature, but this guy upsets me to my core and I was always raised to not take crap. Am I the jerk? OP's not the jerk. I love any revenge where you know that their mom is important to the person. I've seen so many posts about guys who are like so harassing or awful on Facebook, and their Facebook literally has their mom added as a friend publicly. Like guys who send really messed up, really assaulty, pervy messages. I mean, being able to screen cap that with the guy's name and his profile picture stuck in it and send it off to their mom, maybe it'll do something, maybe it won't, but it's still beautiful. At least their mom knows what kind of person they are. BearHug7602 commented, "Not gonna lie, OP, I kind of think he was trying to hit you up again. Who goes looking through the blocked numbers on their phone? Why would he delete your contact info if you were blocked? Why was it so important to him to find out who it was? He was 100% trying to hit you up and tried to scorch earth when you were obviously over him. He deserves to have his mom know how he talks to women." OP responded saying, "I didn't even think of that. Yikes." Our next story is, would I be the jerk if I stopped a tradition among my friend group? Hi, I, 23-year-old female, am in a friend group with 3 other girls, all 23. I've been single for 2 years and the rest are all in committed relationships, the shortest being 8 months and the longest being almost 2 years. Ever since they all started dating, our hangouts have turned to triple dates with me as an extra, and we never hang out as just the 4 of us anymore. I'm not too put off by this, as their boyfriends are all super nice and I enjoy being friends with them. Somewhere along the way, one of my friends, Maya, started a tradition of taking a 7th wheel photo, where I stand alone staring at the camera and the 3 couples doing coupley things, for example holding hands, hugging, etc. around me. We all found it funny at first, and we always get a lot of likes and comments whenever we share these photos online. It did get a bit tedious for me after a couple of months of doing this at every hangout, but my friends got upset when I suggested stopping it or at least doing it less. So the tradition continues. Fast forward to this month when they texted in our group chat about having Valentine's Day dinner together. I didn't respond for a while because 1, I was at work, and 2, I figured it was a romantic thing so I wouldn't be invited. However, they started getting frustrated at me not replying and Maya called to ask me if I could make it. I asked if they really wanted me 7th wheeling them on Valentine's Day, to which she replied, "Of course, we have to continue our tradition. How can we take the photo without our main character there?" I got annoyed at this and told her that I needed to work that day and can't make it. So on Valentine's Day, they went on a triple date and I stayed home to watch movies with my roommate. However, I've been thinking about how uncomfortable taking those photos have been making me, but wonder if it's something worth voicing out and potentially having an argument about, as my friends seem really excited about taking it each time. Would I be the jerk? So I don't know if this is going to be controversial, but I'm almost sort of on a both sides scenario here, just in the sense that if they're good enough friends that if OP were to get in a relationship, they would immediately embrace the kind of end of that 7th wheel tradition and maybe even start the 4 double date tradition thing. That would obviously be a great thing. The thing I'm struggling with the most is, do the friends know how uncomfortable it's making OP? Have they actually fully voiced that? Or is this kind of a silent thing that OP's just not wanting to go along with? Like, would you guys agree that there is some nugget of truth to not being able to make a solid judgment against this friend group unless it has been fully expressed how it's been making OP feel? Like, maybe you could argue they should have gotten the memo, but OP hasn't expressly told them how it's making them feel. That said though, OP's feelings are valid, and I don't think they're outright the jerk for anything here. Caspian4136 commented, "Not the jerk. This was funny and cute when you were younger, but not so funny now. It's okay to be honest with your friends and tell them that you no longer like being the 7th wheel, much less the butt of a joke in the pictures." Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to attend my brother's coming-of-age birthday party? For some background, I, 22-year-old female, have a younger brother, 4-year difference. Our family has a history of having only girls in line. So naturally, my brother is everyone's treasure, especially our mother's, who treats him like some delicate flower. Basically, I grew up stuck between boarding school during the week and doing chores around the house on weekends because my brother was always too young to do chores, or it's a girl's job to clean and cook. It's the same even today. I do chores, he goes out with friends. I would lie if I said I don't get annoyed by it. He's clearly our parents' favorite child, and I often get told that I should do better as a woman. In the past, I used to be less vocal about it, but these days I'm starting to notice more things that don't necessarily sit right with me, and one of them is my brother's coming-of-age party. Here, that particular birthday party is the most important one you'd ever have. Our parents organized everything for their son. Reserved the venue, got him to invite all his friends and the whole family, hired a whole team just to decorate the venue in whatever theme their son picks, even managed to book a DJ that's famous in the area and therefore hard to hire. And now, don't get me wrong, I also think that this particular birthday is meant to be celebrated big. I really do. But I still remember mine. My coming-of-age party wasn't meant to happen. Our mother was against it, saying that we don't have enough money to throw a whole party about it. At the same time, I was very persistent because I wanted to have this celebration. I fought with our mother about it really bad, and in the end, it was Dad who convinced her to allow it. I did have my celebration, though now that I look back at it, I really wish I didn't. My coming-of-age party was at a restaurant with music played from a Spotify playlist and just a few closest friends of mine, plus the close family. Am I saying it's bad? No, it was a great night and everyone had fun. It's just everything around it. All the fights to have the celebration, the pressure of choosing only the smallest number of guests, having to explain why I couldn't invite all of them, and the preparations I had to do on my own. I was also told to give away the money I got in presents to pay back my parents for the party. It's a tradition that guests give you money for you to start your adulthood with it. Some people use it for college, some buy their first car with it, whatever is your priority. I didn't get to keep it. And now that it's my brother's turn to have his party, and seeing how different treatment he gets, I might have reached my limit. I pointed out how unfair it is as our financial situation didn't change, and told him that I will attend the party only if he'll give away the money he receives, just like I was told to do. Otherwise, I won't go there. I felt truly hurt. Still do, but am I the jerk for giving such an ultimatum? Because I definitely feel like one. I don't think OP's the jerk because I feel like anybody that hears the situation understands how valid OP's feelings are. Like, maybe you could argue that it's a little excessive for OP to say, oh, he needs to give away all his money for me to attend. I would just say the simple act of choosing not to attend is a not the jerk thing. Alien Overlord 1001 commented, not the jerk. You have internalized the obvious misogyny here, and that manifests as guilt. You are right to be outraged. I too grew up like this, the only girl, and I got stuck with chores or being abused while my brothers just did whatever they wanted. My mother still brought them breakfast in bed when they were teens. It's total BS. Your life and milestones are just as important as his. It should be of no surprise to anyone if you distance yourself from your parents when you leave. When they're old and sick, let Golden Boy take care of them. Don't let them railroad you into anything. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my friend to go to a food bank? I have a friend, let's call her Sally, who's been going through some tough times. Sally split from her boyfriend last year when she caught him cheating. They had been together for over 2 decades and he was very wealthy. Sally was a homemaker while they were together, and when they split, she was left with literally nothing. Since the split, she's been relying on the kindness of friends to get by. She's mostly been staying with one friend in particular, but lots of her friends have been pitching in to help meet her needs. Currently, she's attempting to support herself by trying to find work as a freelance artist, which she refers to as hustling. Most of the money she makes immediately goes back into art supplies. I live in a different state from her currently and am barely scraping by myself with a child to care for, so I've not been able to help her financially. Instead, I just try to be a sympathetic ear for her to vent to, and I've let her know that I don't mind her venting to me. It is also important to note that when she was with her ex, they would often help their friends make ends meet financially. She has helped me and my family more than once. Yesterday, we were talking on the phone, and she mentioned that she couldn't afford food. She said that for the past few days, she's barely eaten anything, and she doesn't want to ask the friend she's staying with for food because she feels like that friend is already doing too much. I mentioned that she should try to look into some local food banks in her area, and she became extremely offended. She said, "You know, you'd just think that with all the people I've helped over the years that I wouldn't have to turn to that. It's embarrassing." I told her that I wish I could help her myself, but that I only have $100 until next payday, and I have to put my child first. I offered to help her by doing some Googling for her about her options, but she insisted that taking food from a charity was embarrassing and unacceptable. I reminded her that everyone goes through difficult times and it's not embarrassing to ask for help. I asked her if she looked down on her friends who had needed help over the years, and she said that she didn't, but that she just wasn't used to being the person in need. She then ended the call saying she needed to get back to work. And I get the feeling that I offended her. So Reddit, am I the jerk? OP's not the jerk here. I'm not actually quite sure how to go about it in the next conversation to make things better. I think it's pretty clear that the friend has some kind of reservation as to being seen as somebody that needs that help. I mean, I think it's actually a pretty reasonable thing to feel, especially when you were the person that was giving the charity out. When you kind of come from having a place of pride in being able to do that to suddenly having to ask for scraps yourself, it's kind of akin to an addiction, like admitting you have a problem. To accept food from a food bank is to accept that you can't get by yourself, for example. Worth Season 3645 commented, "Not the jerk. Your friend was with her partner for almost 20 years and she got nothing from him? Your friend needs a reality check. She needs a real job that pays a salary. Being a freelance artist is all good in theory, but clearly it is not supporting her. I have a feeling the kindness of those helping Sally is going to wear thin soon." TimelyEgg6827 replied, "Common law marriage doesn't exist in a lot of places, and no child. It's assumed that an adult can work. She should be eligible for some form of living allowance from the state, but if too proud to apply, that's on her. She's wanting to maintain the same social standing as she perceives it without the stigma of working or asking for help. Feels like a Regency novel. The poor spinster living on charity in the corner, but treated as one of the family, but not quite." Our next story is, "Am I the jerk for asking to wear pants to my sister-in-law's wedding? I, Olivia, 27, love photography, and my sister-in-law, Samantha, 27. When she announced her wedding, I volunteered to be her photographer completely free of charge. She lives hours away and I wanted to help with the stress. Big mistake. Because I enjoy being creative, I also designed her invitations, table numbers, wedding website, playlists, and bridal shower games. I even took a vacation day to help set up. She asked me to organize the wedding timeline, which I did, and she's always had access to it. But with every task, she became more demanding. Some mornings I would wake up to 20+ texts full of requests. Some of the more ridiculous ones, she insisted I make a custom cocktail hour playlist instead of using a pre-made one. She demanded I attend a second rehearsal, even after I said I had an exam to study for. She assumed I would photograph her bridal shower and rehearsal without asking. And the kicker, she insists I wear a floor-length gown and heels while photographing the wedding. I'm not in the wedding party. I won't even be in pictures because I'm taking them. Long fabric, in heels, and running around a venue? I'll be tripping all day. I asked months ago to wear something more practical, and she completely shut it down. On top of this, family drama has made things worse. My father-in-law has been gossiping about the siblings. When my husband and I refused to engage, he called us self-righteous, causing a rift. I assured Samantha that I would remain civil. That word is important later. I recently found out that she's been complaining about me saying, "I don't know what's going on with the wedding because Olivia hasn't responded," and blaming me for her not hanging out with everyone. She's also mocked my husband and me for our faith, jealous that other siblings are closer to us because we attend the same church. Now, a week before the wedding, I finally put my foot down. I told her she should assign a bridesmaid to coordinate the day of because I can't be both photographer and coordinator. I need to wear pants and comfy shoes to do my job, but would change into a dress after major events. Her response? "I thought we agreed to keep things civil. Did I do something offensive? I'm trying to keep this wedding less stressful as much as I can." Civil? If anyone has made this wedding less stressful, it's me. I don't think she's concerned about me, just that she won't get more out of me. I love her, but enough is enough. I have exams, my cat just had surgery for a possibly cancerous tumor, and I was sick for a month leading up to this. I understand I signed myself up for all of these duties, and I'm asking to change my outfit last minute, but I feel completely taken advantage of. Am I the jerk? So the story actually made me kind of curious for like a general perception. When it comes to weddings, would it be acceptable to say all women must wear dresses or like floor-length gowns? Like not even necessarily like cultural, like I get it if it's a legitimate cultural thing, but just in general, if Sally is over here throwing a wedding and says all women must wear dresses, would you guys say that that's a very reasonable request? Even like the photographer? Use Your Smarts commented, "You're the jerk for asking to wear pants, but only because you don't need her permission to wear whatever the fork you want within dress code. She has no right to demand free photos or tell you what to wear. Grow some balls and tell her where to stick her dress and that you'll be attending only as a guest since you haven't been officially hired or provided a deposit." I'm not sure I would even be going to the wedding of someone who mocks me behind my back. You are being taken advantage of. The only person who can stop that is you. Why are you letting it happen? It's okay to have boundaries. If you go, turn up in pants. If she doesn't like it, offer to leave. Whether you bring a camera or not is up to you. If you do, tell her you agree to take photos but to not edit them or provide copies, and that will require payment. That'll teach her. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my friend's mom to mind her business? I, 20-year-old female, have been friends with a girl that I'll call Mary, 21-year-old female, for 7 years. We're very good friends and have stayed close, even though we see each other less now because I moved away for college. The only problem in our friendship is that Mary tells her mom everything. She's an only child, so she's very close to her parents, and she kind of considers her mom like her friend or sister. I would be fine with it if she only talked to her mom about her life, but she also involves her mom in her friends' lives. It used to bother me a bit, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Sometimes when we had arguments, she would go to tell her mom and then her mom would send me a text to take Mary's side, which I hated, but other than that, it was okay. That's mainly because I was a very boring person back in middle and high school, so even if she repeated everything I said back to her mom, there wasn't much to tell. But recently, in college, my life became a lot more eventful. I started going to parties, dating people, typical college stuff. And as friends do, I was telling Mary about that new stuff. I told her about the guys I dated, told her about how I was struggling mentally because of anxiety, told her about some family problems that I had. And all of that she repeated back to her mom. From time to time, I would receive texts from her mom giving me advice on stuff that I told Mary. She would tell me that she thought I should dump this guy or date this one or what I should do about my family. I told Mary a few times that I was uncomfortable with her telling her mom about my life, but she just said, "Come on, it's just my mom," so I let it go for a while. But yesterday, I got a text from her mom and I basically found out that Mary had also been telling her mom about my hookup life. I texted Mary to tell her that it was very inappropriate and she had no right to tell her mom about that because it was personal. She once again brushed it off, so I texted her mom directly, telling her that it wasn't any of her business, that she was overstepping and she had to stop involving herself in my life. Now Mary and her mom are both angry at me and I don't know if I'm in the wrong. I get that it was maybe mean to say that, but it's also been years of all of our friends asking Mary to stop telling her mom everything, and I felt like she had really crossed a line. Maybe I should apologize, but I kind of feel like if I do, she'll never stop doing this. I'm conflicted because I do regret reacting that way and not being more calm, but also I don't really feel like I was overreacting. I'd really appreciate getting other people's perspective on this. Edit, I know that it seems stupid that I kept telling Mary about my life, but she's my best friend. And I had no one else to confide in through rough times in my life, and I genuinely didn't think that she would talk about my hookup life to her mom. I was uncomfortable with the rest of it, but I'd mostly just ignore it. I assumed that she would know that my hookup life wasn't something she should discuss with her mom, and looking back, of course I regret it and think it was stupid, but back then I didn't know. Also, why are multiple people saying that I've known Mary for over a decade? OP's not the jerk. Obviously, you shouldn't go blabbing about your friend's hookup life if they are confiding in that to you as a friend, to your parents. I mean, sure, it's kind of cool that you have that level of communication with your parents, but you don't go around telling other people's stuff to them. And especially she shouldn't be going around involving herself in OP's hookup life either. I mean, just think about like all of your best friends and imagine like if you do ever share them any kind of details about your hookup life, imagine their parent texting you and commenting about it out of the blue. Like it's kind of violating feeling, right? My question is, why does OP continue to allow it? Like OP said, all those times back then, I had nobody else to confide in. Sure, I get that, but I'm assuming they didn't have a hookup life back then, like they're still kind of doing it. Helen, gone, commented, "Not the jerk to Mary's mom, but you're the jerk to yourself. Stop telling Mary anything you don't want blabbed to the whole universe. She's not able to cope with private information, so stop trying to turn her into a person that she's not capable of being at this point." Our next story is, am I the jerk for how I reacted to my husband's ex-wife girlfriend buzzing my stepson's hair? This is a throwaway and all names have been changed. To explain the relationships here, I, 30-year-old female, married my husband Alex, 31-year-old male, about a year ago. But we've been together for 4 years. He was previously married and after they had agreed to divorce, she told him she was pregnant. We'll call his ex Kate, 30-year-old female. Kate had been cheating on Alex with Jess, 32-year-old female, for about a year. I had known Alex for years through mutual friends, and I met his son when he was 6 months old. So present day, Kate and Jess are together still, but very hot and cold. I went to pick up my stepson from school, Jess had dropped him off, and he seemed quiet and sad. I asked him what was wrong and he said that he was sad because he had no hair. He has beautiful curly hair. He told us he wanted to grow it out into a mullet. At that time, my husband cleared it with his mom that they were both okay with that, and she agreed to have me trim it as needed, like around his ears. He took off his hat and it was buzzed down to his scalp. I was shocked but just said, "Well, I think you look very handsome, but I thought you wanted to grow it out. Why did you cut it?" Apparently, Jess was going to trim it and forgot to put a guard on. When she realized that, it was too late and she had to buzz it. When we got home, I called Kate. She didn't know how bad the haircut was and was tied up at a work event. She suggested I make sure I get the whole story on what happened, so with her permission, I went right to Jess after I called my husband, who was driving home from a couple hours away, and explained what was going on. So I called Jess, asked to verify what he said, and tell her how upset he was. She said that this is exactly what happened, but didn't see why it was such a big deal. She kept saying that I'm overreacting and it's just hair, so I tried to explain that as a kid, there's so much he doesn't get a say in, so it was a big deal to him. I told her she should never go near his head with clippers again. She came back with, "Well, you're not his mom," and when I reminded her she wasn't either, she said, "I'm a heck of a lot closer than you. I've been here since day one." To which I said, "Yeah, because you were an affair partner, don't cut his hair again," and hung up. I called my husband back to explain everything and calm down. He had been on the phone with Kate discussing things as well, and I texted Kate to give an overview and say I was sorry if I overreacted. It's the next day and Jess is trying to tell Kate I shouldn't be allowed to cut his hair if she can't, and I need to get my parenting privileges taken away. I think that's crazy. And just to clarify my role as a step-parent, Kate and my husband meet twice a year alone to discuss parenting things, and at the last one, Kate said she's comfortable with seeing me as a parent and is ready to include me in the meetings going forward. But am I the jerk for being upset with Jess for not only buzzing his hair, but for how she reacted trying to minimize it? I don't think OP's the jerk. And honestly, I don't even buy the whole, guard wasn't on, I have to buzz the whole thing now, oops. I mean, if that's true, OP is not crazy for saying don't cut his hair again. How much of a careless person do you have to be when going to trim some kid's hair that you don't realize there's not a guard on the clippers? What were you trying to do? They want to say it's not intentional? Sure, but somebody that careless should not be given the clippers again. Cold Gator commented, "Not the jerk, and I don't believe Jess. As soon as she saw that she had shaved it too short in one area, that meant she had to shave his entire head? I bet she didn't like that she was the only one not included in the mullet decision, so she did this on purpose." Mundane Currency 5088 commented, "Or she personally hates that type of haircut and made sure to mark him as hers in a weird control thing." This next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to be my mom's caretaker? Am I the jerk for telling my mom that I refuse to take care of her or take her to chemotherapy if she continues to smoke? She has stage NG cancer, and I feel like it's not fair for her to expect me to be her caretaker and support person if she doesn't even take care of herself. So I'm not exactly sure what stage NG is, but I feel like if there's no other reason besides just the simple fact that they don't think it's worth it because they don't stop smoking, they probably are the jerk. I get it, the continuing to smoke kind of goes in the face of cancer, but at the same time, I don't really understand how you can say, I don't get how she can expect me to be her caretaker if she doesn't even take care of herself. All she's trying to do is get to chemotherapy. Everybody surely knows that it's not an admirable effort unless you go to chemotherapy and stop smoking. I'm sarcastic, by the way, if it isn't obvious. Bless anybody who tries to struggle and stick through chemotherapy. Shelizabeth93 commented, "I knew a man who was in end-of-life stage 4 lung cancer. They told him not to bother quitting as it would stress him out so much more. He smoked and drank, had a great Halloween party, he lived it up. He lived 3 more years when they gave him 6 months. The point is, no one knows what will happen. Quitting now won't help anything. Do you want to be the jerk for not being there for your mom? Personally, I think you're upset and scared and angry. The anger is justifiable. It's like having grief before anything happens. You're mad that you can't fix it. You will regret not being there for her in the future." Our next story is, am I the jerk for leaving our dorm room open to potential invaders? I'm currently a dorming student who has one other roommate. My roommate has a lot of rules when it comes to locking the doors and windows. She's insistent that I keep the door locked at all times and the windows locked whenever we're not at the dorm. Our windows is a slide window with a mesh screen to let air in, and it's barred from the inside, secured with a lock. But because our window is always kept closed when we're not in the dorm, it's always hot and humid inside the room when I get back, even if it's freezing outside. I suspect this is from a lack of air circulation in the room. For the most part, I can understand where she's coming from. One day I go downstairs to our dorm lobby to use the microwave. When I come back, I realize I left my key in the room and the door is locked. I knock on the door, assuming that she would open it for me. I even said that I forgot to bring my key with me downstairs. I receive no response, so I approach our dorm staff if I could borrow a spare key. They let me borrow one, and I get inside. To my surprise, she was in the dorm the whole time. She's sitting in her bed, which is located right next to the door. She makes no comment when I get inside and completely ignores me. I let this whole situation pass without saying anything. A few days ago, I ordered some food to be delivered and I'm eating it inside the room. I go outside to grab it, lock the door as I left, but I forgot to lock the door once I was back inside. She comes back from her classes and sees the doors unlocked, but she walks and sees me. She complains about the door being unlocked and how I could have potentially let in other people. I don't see what the big deal was since I was inside anyways, but I knew I still owed her an apology, so I apologized. Just today, both of us left for class, but I accidentally left the window open, but I still locked the door. She sends me a long message when she gets back and sees the window open, saying how people could have gotten in and stolen her laptop that she left right at her desk. She tells me how her things could have gotten damaged, although I don't see how. She calls me irresponsible for leaving the window open. I tell her that she's overreacting since our window is right across the other side of the room from her desk. There have been other issues with her, like taking up the majority of space and overall being disruptive, but parents told me that I should just let those things slide to avoid conflict. I've done my best to just nod and apologize, but I draw the line with her calling me irresponsible just because she's overreacting. For a little bit of information, I'm confident in our dorm security. The whole place has a gate where you can scan your fingerprint to prove you're a resident, or list down your name and leave an ID at the gate if you're a visitor. Not to mention, our building has another fingerprint system to ensure that you're a resident of that building before you can get inside. Now, when it comes to a situation like forgetfulness or if you're just popping out to grab the DoorDash or whatever, I don't really think they're the jerk, but when it comes to a situation like leaving the window open or the door unlocked for a longer period of time, where their valuables are put at risk, I don't really see how OP could do anything besides apologize and mention how they'll try to do better next time. JR Swamp Fox commented, "You're the jerk. It might not be a big deal to you, but this is a shared space. You have to respect the request of your dorm mates as long as they're reasonable. Do the dishes, clean up, don't party after 10, and locking up when you leave is a big one. Granted, if you're just popping down to grab some DoorDash, keeping it unlocked in my opinion is not a big deal. But if it is for your dorm mate, then you either gotta move out or respect it." Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my dad he chose between me and his fiancée when he prioritized her surgery over mine? I, 17-year-old female, have had a rocky relationship with my dad. My parents married after I was born, hoping to provide a stable family for me, but they divorced when I was 11 after my dad went to rehab, and things only worsened from there. During rehab, he met his current fiancée, and they later had a kid, 6-year-old female. Since then, my dad has been mostly absent from my life. Whether I have important events, he either has an excuse or doesn't show. I would estimate he's been present for less than half of my events since their divorce. A few years ago, I was diagnosed with scoliosis, and initially, surgery wasn't needed. However, my condition got worse and I was finally scheduled for surgery on 11/20 of this year. I told my dad about it months ago, expressing how much I needed his support this time, and he promised that he would be there. But later, he texted to say that he planned a vacation that would keep him away until mid-December, just as my recovery period would be ending. It broke my heart, but I accepted it. Then, 2 hurricanes hit his vacation spot, and he told me he would make my surgery. I felt a glimmer of hope, but then, just a week before my surgery, he texted again saying his fiancé's lung cancer surgery had been scheduled for the same day, a few hours before mine, at a hospital 30 minutes away. He said he might not make it to my surgery, but with him, might not usually means won't. He added that this wasn't about who he loved more. That message shattered me. I realized that no matter how much I hoped, he might never give me the attention and support I needed. I broke down on my kitchen floor that day. After sitting with my feelings, I texted him to tell him how deeply his actions hurt me. I said it wasn't only about love, but about showing care, and that he had given me hope only to let me down again. I questioned if his fiancé's surgery had really been scheduled last minute, or if he had known earlier but hadn't told me. I asked him to show he was my dad through his actions, not just his words. He responded, insisting the surgery was only scheduled the day he told me, but because he's lied in the past to save face, I reached out to someone who might know the truth. I then sent a follow-up message clarifying that my frustration wasn't with his fiancée, it was his ongoing absence and lack of support. I said that even if his reasons were genuine, he could have at least shown some empathy. I told him I hoped he'd be a better father for my half-sister than he has been for me. In a final message, I made it clear that I was done putting in all the effort to maintain our relationship on my own. I told him that if he wanted to be my dad, I would gladly be his daughter, but if he chose not to, I would be fine with that too. He hasn't responded, and honestly, I'd prefer he sit with what I said. For once, I hope he really thinks about his actions and the impact they've had on me. So, am I the jerk? So, this one is really tricky because OP is almost entirely valid in what they say, except for the fact that personally I think him going to his fiance's lung cancer surgery is a completely fair choice for him to make in solely that situation. The timing absolutely is horrendous, but I think that is a more obvious place for the father to be in that situation. That said, it doesn't negate the history and the years of all the things that he hasn't done. OP then went on to post an update. Am I the jerk for telling my dad he chose between me and his fiancée when he prioritized her surgery over mine? Update. I've been dragging my feet on an update, but here it is. Surgery recovery has been great. I've been in therapy since 12, so my therapist knows everything about my dad. Can I just say, it's weird seeing my story posted on other apps with Subway Surfers and Woodwork. Love that people think my dad is a sperm donor and not a dad across all platforms. Senior night is on Valentine's Day, which I've told him weeks in advance, saying, games start at 7 usually, but I would get at the school 30 minutes early since we would probably do it before the game. I texted his mom, Mima, to ask him if he was going, and he texted her, "Oh, I never got a date. She doesn't tell me anything." Bull. I told her I'll go no contact if he doesn't go, and I'll go low contact if he does go. If he wants to know, he can freaking ask and write it in his calendar. I told my mom to stop saying neutral and tell me why he acts like this. The relationship is almost ruined, so there's no point in her trying to save it. He likes to play victim, try to make it sound like my mom doesn't want him around, uses it as an excuse to make him look like a good guy. I've seen text messages when I was younger of my mom trying to get my dad to make an effort. I showed her the first post, so I'll send her this one too. Hi mom. The Kindle had screenshots of some convos. I love you. I saw them in August when I found it, so I knew for a while. I see my mom in a new light now. She'll be walking me down the aisle and my first dance. She sacrificed so much of herself for me. She's not only mom, but my dad. For non-Americans, senior night usually involves seniors and chosen people to walk them across the floor. My dad walked me down for my fall senior night, but he will not be one of my people this Friday. I am desperate to keep contact with my sister. I know Mima will help me with that. I know that if fiancé and dad break up, he will do the same thing to my sister. Friday came and passed. My dad got upset when he realized I didn't want him to walk me across the gym floor. He, along with Mima and my sister, left during halftime. We did the walk before varsity game, and pep band can't leave the stands until third, same as marching band, plus Mima had been to previous basketball games, along with football games. I left Dad a long voicemail and message Friday for leaving, especially since my sister begged to see me and he refused her. I told Mima I was disappointed that she left when she knew what happens at games. Monday, I finally sent him boundaries and blocked him. I know I'm going to cry later. This is going to be hard for me. Thanks for your support. It means a lot to me throughout this journey. All I can really say is, the one thing you can say about this dad, they're pretty consistent at what they do and not really being all that much of a dad. I'm glad that OP's managing to push forward and figure out how things really are as far as the relationships go with their family. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.